So people wonder what hypnosis is, and you've probably wondered before what hypnosis is, and you may not even know when you're being hypnotized. And really it's a matter of just slowing your mind and your body down and taking deep, very, very conscious breaths and just letting go, letting everything go. And you may find it very easy now just to start to let things go. All the sounds that are around you are actually very soothing right now. And now you need all your money, Joe.
We're here in Pittsfield in the barn once again. I'm Tim Nye, Colonel Nye, retired colonel. To my left, I've got Zephyra, the something,
but we're at SpartanUpPodcast.com, yeah?
Well, you called her Zephyra with a Z.
That's
it's
okay.
Zephyra with an
Zephyra. No wonder you stared at me then. It was like, wow.
She did take her jacket off. She's a wild edibles expert.
Yeah. Anyway, we've got Joe here to my right.
Love it.
And we've got Johnny on the far right over there.
Dr. Johnny.
Johnny on the spot.
I know you're doing the open.
You want to start it over?
No,
keep going.
No, we're great.
We're killing it. Going.
Great.
That's all I got.
Well, all right. So here at SpartanUpPodcast.com, we are interviewing a very familiar friend, Johnny. This is you and Joe, and
it's like being at my own funeral. It's really interesting to be able to sit here and comment on my own interview, which I won't comment. I'll just hear what you guys have to say.
Listen,
I
mean, I
think it's not a great one, to be honest with you. It's a little boring.
You were hypnotized, Joe.
Awesome.
It's worth watching because at the end you do a few things that maybe somebody will learn something from.
Great, that is a ringing endorsement. Right? I'm really excited about this now. Let's go see what I did that wasn't so great.
Yep, ready.
Spartan Up the podcast. We're here with Johnny Waite. Johnny Waite is a master at human psychology, motivation, speaking, death races, construction. I watched him build a bridge.
Yeah.
What else are you great at?
I don't know. I think you've pretty much hit all the key points there.
Parenting.
Yeah, and I'd say the other thing I'm good at is getting through adversity. We all hit points that are tough.
Yeah.
And I think I've harnessed the skills to pull through the other side quickly and with some momentum, because I think a lot of people something bad happens, they stay there, right?
Get stuck in the mud.
Yeah, as opposed to how do you come out the other end of that and actually hit the ground running and be able to create positive things out of it.
What are the things there's traits, there's human traits that get people stuck. Sometimes I'll ask for a favor from you to go on a mission, a secret ops mission, where we've got some kind of issue, and invariably those issues are human issues.
Yep,
people are not getting along, whatever it may be. And what are the traits that make that happen versus people that don't have those issues?
A lot of it's blame, right? Because people want to find somebody to blame. So when there's a problem, especially between two people, it's his fault, it's her fault, it's her fault. And so they get stuck because until the other person will come around, it's not going to get solved. And the other person is outside of our control. Really, it's only ourselves, right? So I know there have been a couple of situations where I've gone into to work with people on your behalf, and it's been about that, exactly. It's been about what can you do? Not what can that guy do, what can you do? And anytime we're in our own life and we get into a spot, if I can dig in and say, what is there in this that I can do about it? My favorite expression is, so what? Because people tell me something, I say, so what? It could be anything. My grandmother died, so what? I don't mean it in terms of that it's dismissing it, but it's, so in the face of that, what are you going to do now?
Right.
Because it's already there.
Right.
So I'm big on so what. So in the face of that, what can I do? So
and it's funny when you hear so what, right, as you're saying it and it's processing my brain, I'm thinking pretty much everything is so what.
100%.
Right? Yeah. It's like we're dust at the end of the day. So
that was exactly the whole theme of this race that I just helped you manage on the mountain this weekend, the death race. I had them memorize quotes, and they'd have to go out and do 5 hours of brutal stuff on that mountain. And they'd have to memorize a quote about the fact that I'm going to die. What's my life going to have been about? It was always more flowery words than I'm using right now, but the gist of everything was, it only matters in so much as we make it matter, so let's make it matter. You and I talked about that, and one time I said something that nothing matters, and you thought I was saying blow it off. And I said, no, that's the point. Uh-huh. The fact that there's no already preset meaning to anything gives us the ability to make it mean anything that we want. So let's be creative. That's what you're doing with this project. You're saying, what meaning can we create out of this from scratch? And then you go out and do something powerful with it in the world. Yeah. And I think so many people have bought into the TikTok, the idea that It's about growing up and becoming a good consumer and buying happiness and all these things, as opposed to realizing that you wake up every single morning with a decision, what am I going to do today? And I talk a lot about surplus and deficit and producing and consuming. So people wake up and they're in deficit. They don't have enough of something. So they need to go out and consume something to feel better. And at the end of the day, they're out of pocket, more energy, more love, more time that they've given away to get this thing that's elusive. Instead of waking up in the morning and saying, I'm breathing, the sun's coming out, I'm in surplus. There's more than I need to stay alive. So I can become a producer. I can produce good energy.
That's a great,
these people are now going out and producing positive results.
Hold on one second.
We had to take a break there for a second. We have 30 camera people that work on this podcast, so there's a lot of moving parts.
For sure.
Yeah. So I like that surplus idea because when you frame that in your life and you realize the old days, you and I right now would be looking for food.
Yeah.
But we've got all the food we want. We both have jackets on, right? Yeah. We've got shoes. We don't need anything.
No. But that's not what we're taught, right? We're still taught you have to want. You have to get up wanting something and going. So, but you've harnessed it, and these people have harnessed it where what they want is they want to create change. They want to create a difference. So we're still out there trying to generate something, but it's to generate something positive as opposed to, once you already have everything, then we just create these wants. And so much of consumerism is things that we could never possibly need, but we still need something. And so if you can see yourself as a producer, that you wake up, that you already have more than you could ever need. You have food, you have a jacket, you have a car that works.
Right.
Everything after that's a bonus.
Makes life a lot easier when you put it in that perspective, right? You're not going to stress out about anything because you got water, you got food, you got shelter, right?
Yeah. Well, and the cool thing with that, so you and I talked a little while ago, I think I sent you a quoting to read, and it was, the best moments in our lives are not the passive, receptive, relaxing times. The best moments usually occur if a person's body or mind is stretched to its limits in a voluntary effort to accomplish something difficult and worthwhile, by Michele C. Very long last name, I'll just say Michele C. He wrote a book called Flow, and you and I have talked about this, the idea that an easy life is no life at all. People say, I wish I just had an easy life. Don't wish for an easy life. Wish for a really challenging life and the strength to do it. So life is very easy. And you and now I, on your behalf, are creating events that create challenge out of nowhere. And by putting people through these incredibly difficult situations, then they seek difficult situations in life in a positive way. And when the ones that are thrust at them that they don't want that happen, well, you can deal with it because you've dealt with difficult stuff. But more importantly, when you wake up in the morning, what challenge can I create today? What can I go out and cause to happen? What friction can I create that's going to have a positive outcome? Is how we're driven. And so this idea of an easy life, oh my God, what a terrible thing.
Would be the worst thing.
Oh, it'd be the worst thing.
Right. There's no. It's like everybody getting a trophy.
Yeah, that's
right.
right.
There's no. It doesn't mean anything.
Easy's a trap, right? I remember hearing a great line. It was, you can only coast when you're going downhill. Please don't let me coast. Make me pedal, please.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I like that a lot. And so we talk about obstacle immunity.
Yep.
Does that play a role in what you're talking about?
Sure does. Yeah, absolutely. The idea that we're taught in life to avoid every obstacle. Just avoid it. Just do not get into any difficulty. Make a nice, safe, easy path. But that's not how life works. There's going to be stuff thrown at you. No matter what, there's going to be obstacles come along. Even if they're not to the end, they're still there. And a lot of people, by trying to make life easy, trying to avoid this when it comes, they don't have any idea. How am I going to get over a 4-foot wall? I have no idea, right? And I loved an interview you gave ages ago where a lady in the background was trying to get over the slip wall. And you weren't even looking at her. You said, there's a lady trying to go over this wall right now. I can hear her. And she's going to get over it eventually. And you said, when she does, she'll have a new place to stand in the world. And that's what it is no matter what. And it's all to scale, right? So somebody who's not an athlete and goes out and finishes a Spartan race, they run a lot of sweeps. Sweep's the coolest job in that whole thing because, the winners have won. They've already gone and they're having their fun. It's that lady who's lost 100 pounds and she's finishing this course and it's just going to kill her, but she's going to get there anyway, right?
Yeah.
Or the guy, where was I, in the UK a couple weeks ago. He insisted upon doing every single burpee, chest to the ground, jump overhead. And you watch a lot of middle-of-the-road athletes who don't do that, right? And this guy's insisting on it. Those are the cool stories. So they now have obstacle immunity because when something else comes up and they go, you know what, I've been there.
Not nearly as bad as what I just went through.
Right? Yeah.
What could people do that have an easy life, right? They're doing the 9 to 5, they're commuting every day to get themselves out of their comfort zone, and weave that into a normal life. Some people would say the stuff we do is abnormal. What could they do?
Well, I'd say there's 2 steps. The first step is, how can you challenge yourself? How can you just find something? And you know what? For some people, it's walking down to the corner and back, right? Instead of getting in the golf cart, people have golf carts to get their mail. Come on, really?
All right.
Instead of doing that, walk down, get your mail. The next day, walk to the corner. Little things like introduce yourself to somebody. We've created these bubbles, right? Actually walk up and look somebody and say, hey, I'm Johnny Waite. Who are you?
Right.
Wow, just out of the blue. These are things that get us out of our comfort zone. But then every day, just a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And next thing you know, you'll be running an ultramarathon, you'll be doing whatever. But then, to me, the second part that's really important, and a guy from Virginia last night, and I loved all the conversations that are happening here, he was talking about how he was a runner, and he said, how can I make a living at running? Well, he couldn't. But what he could make a living out of is creating running opportunities for other people.
Yeah, I like that.
So once you bust out of your comfort zone, once you've done something really cool, like when I came down here, I mean, you know my story that I was kind of, can I swear?
Yeah, let's do it.
I completely shit the bed in 2008. I really had. And so I did a total reset. So when I came down here, I just kind of got back on track. So 2011, the death race for me, it was about digging in and proving to myself I was still capable of something incredible. And it opened up everything, right? And so putting yourself in a situation like that, and I knew like Kevin Lowe, another great guy from Alabama, he did not finish in 2011, but he used that failure to harness and build and generate this community of people supporting him, and then 2012 he came and he crushed it. Right. So, but I think the greatest thing about that is once you've done that and once you've got that new place to stand, what are you going to do with it? Right. And to me, it's not an obligation, it's a privilege to then say, what can I do for other people? And whether it's speaking, whether it's coaching, or whether it's helping create events that other people can do. And now I get to go all over the world, right? I'm going to be in South Africa in a week doing our first race ever there. So who would have thought in 2009 when I was living in my car for a year that I'd be in South Africa helping an entire new
organization,
population of people go through and have these life-changing events. So I think that the key is that once you've busted out your comfort zone, you've got yourself a new place to stand, what are you going to do with that? Because you could just say, now I'll just go buy more stuff, and then you're just going to be right back in the dumps.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in just meet people, right? And just make things happen. And even if it feels like it's a dead end, before you know it, it leads to something else. And you just got to be in the mix, right? If you're not in the mix, nothing's going to happen, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're in the mix, things happen.
Well, and I've met so many people where I say, how'd you meet Joe in an airport?
Yeah, right.
Everybody. I just met Joe in an airport. I met Joe at a restaurant. He came over and said, hey, what are you doing? That looks like a really cool book you're reading, right?
Yeah.
And,
or I'm hungry. Would you mind if we share some of that?
Yeah, totally, absolutely. Right. I saw you do that in Atlanta last year. I'm gonna have some of your shrimp there, and it leads to cool stuff, right? But I talked to Tony the Fridge yesterday, and we talked about pattern interrupts. And the idea about a pattern interrupt is we all go through life in our little bubble, our little zone, and everything's exactly expected, right? And then somebody comes and sticks their face in your face and changes everything, and it just creates a vacuum. And then how they react into the vacuum, how they respond, is going to create the new situation. So Tony was saying that people just stop dead in their tracks, and he runs by with this fridge. And then they have an opportunity for a positive response because he's given them the opportunity to donate, to do whatever, right? But it's that pattern interrupt, and that's what you do. When you lean over and say to somebody, hey, can I have a bite of your french fries there? The hell is this guy?
Yeah.
But it's just busted them out of their TikTok. And the minute you can break somebody out of their TikTok, they may choose to fall right back into it, but they may choose not to. And that's the really, really cool thing.
Sure.
It's just that quick break, right? Yeah.
On that note, let's take a break for a minute.
I hope you're not sitting still while you listen. If you are, you better get a burpee break in.
We're back with Johnny Waite. Johnny, you keep referring to a project.
Yeah.
Let's tell, what is this project?
Sure. So the 431 project, which has been going on the last couple of days here in Pittsfield, and I love the idea. It's, to gather people who have the opportunity to go out and drive change. And it's all about, the target is 13 to 21-year-old youth, right? Who are right now sitting around playing video games. They're sitting at the mall. They're complaining there's nothing to do. There's lots to do, right? This is a big world out here. And I don't blame them. People say, oh, the youth today. We created the youth today. Somehow we did it. We overprotected them. We told them we had to drive them to birthday parties instead of walking 3 blocks, right? And then we wonder why they're lazy. So it's up to us to turn that around and give them opportunities. So this is a group of people who come from all walks of life, all backgrounds, but what they're all committed to is where can we create opportunities for kids to get back, to be active, to be outdoors, to be engaged, to have the confidence to go up and talk to somebody, because we don't. They sit with their video games on and don't, right? And we've created all that. We've created this world, so it's up to us to give them opportunities to turn it around. And I love the mission. You've got a bunch of speakers that are putting out great ideas, but every person is going to go away and share this with their networks. And I've, one of the tasks was, not tasks, the objectives is to meet 10 people. I've met 10 of the coolest people I've ever met in my life. And my itinerary is really great now. Anytime I'm not working for you, I'm going to Austin to see the guys who are building the surf park that's going to imbue amazing values and cultures to people.
Yeah.
So you've really hit it on.
Well, I think what happened was, not to go off track here and talk about 431, but what happened was I went to a few cool places where there were cool people there at the dinner table, and I thought, man, we have to do this, but not just make it about ourselves when we're having that cool experience. these are people that can get shit done.
Yeah, sure.
Right?
Exactly.
And so that was that. And yeah, it's working. It looks like it might work.
And not only that, but you said to have conversations, and what I keep hearing is conversations where they're digging into the meat. So,
Right.
you know, maybe that person's been really close to getting it done, but now they've met somebody who has the resource they need,
Yeah.
and that's the value of something like this. It's amazing. Yeah.
Cool. You've got the greatest quotes ever. Maybe not your own, but
Yeah,
stuff
sure.
you find. What do you got? You got some more quotes for us?
Yeah, well, in fact, actually, I just have a constant incoming wave. Like, I put out so much good energy. Facebook, people knock it. I've turned it into the best tool ever. I put out good energy, and good energy flows back all day long. 100 times a day, I'll get something. I thought of you when I saw this video. I was like, that's the coolest video I've ever seen. I didn't have to source it now. It's also coming in, right?
Right.
But so I'm crowdsourcing this positivity, these great messages. So the death race we just did on the weekend up on the hill, before every single time they went out, they had to memorize a quote and then come back verbatim and say it. So I'll give you an example. The very first exercise, I made them create shoes, like skis basically, out of 2x6 wood, and they had to walk 5 miles around really technical terrain on these clomping. They said that we'll be haunted forever by the sound of all these clomping Clydesdales all over the mountain, right? But what they had to memorize before they went out was this. It's only when we truly know and understand that we have a limited time on earth, and that we may have no way of knowing when our time is up, that we will then begin to live each day to the fullest, as if it was the only one we had, by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, wrote on Death and Dying. So I had these guys for 48 hours, constantly, always. The minute they finished a task, I gave them the next one. Your life feels different on you once you greet death and understand your heart's position. You wear your life like a garment from the mission bundle sale ever after, lightly because you realize you paid nothing for it, but cherishing it because you know you won't ever come by such a bargain again. So these are things we don't normally think about. We also don't normally think about them when we're sleep deprived and exhausted and beaten down, right?
Right.
So the armor's off and you get this stuff. And so it's really cool. People just were not dropping. I was like, there were some veterans that the hardest death race they've ever done and they just weren't dropping. And I asked
Do
why.
you think the quotes helped?
Totally it did. I asked why and they said, because I'm going to die anyway. I mean, I'm up here for the next 48 hours. Why don't I keep going, right?
So had you reversed it and given them, it would have been an interesting experiment to give a few racers quotes that were very negative.
Absolutely, 100%.
Right.
We should do that one
We
year.
should do that.
Now, mind
Yeah.
you, how do we pick those poor bastards who are in the
They get the bad quotes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's true. If we just said you have to memorize this, 100%. That's my background, right? It's psychology and hypnosis, really.
Sure.
And it's helping people to reframe things. And if we frame things that I hate this. And there's plenty of quotes out there. It is not hard to find shit on the internet either.
Sure.
I just happen to find the good stuff, right? We could have
And you think that would creep into their brain and eventually break them?
we could have the same physical person, the same person with the same life situation, quit in 12 hours with the exact same task with negativity being thrown at them, as somebody who could go for 100 hours. And I'm not kidding. We could have people go forever with this stuff. And that's what I love, is the idea about tapping in and making it even harder, even more brutal, but helping them push through it, right? And I just want to read you one other one, and this is a thing I read years ago by John Ciardi, and he said, "Effort is the gist of it. There is no happiness except as we take on life-engaging difficulties. Short of the impossible, as Yates put it, the satisfactions we get from a lifetime depend on how high we choose our difficulties."
So the harder it is, the better it is.
And we choose them. So let's go and choose difficult things and raise the bar for ourselves and force ourselves to excel. And then the other one, and I think this is the first one that got started with all this McHaley-C stuff. I sent you one that said, "Of all the virtues we can learn, no trait is more useful, more essential for survival, and more likely to improve the quality of life than the ability to transform adversity into an enjoyable challenge." And that's obstacle immunity. So the thing is, we're creating challenges. And people finish a Spartan race, the hardest thing they've ever done, and they're like, oh, smiles and high fives, and yeah. They finish an Ultra Beast. It's brutal. This is really like crazy stuff. A death race, they're smiling at the end. So they've chosen this difficulty. Now when they go out and life throws, actually, and I'm not even going to talk in the generalities, Mark Webb, real life situation, death racer.
Look at that. Look at that. Yeah, look at that.
A month ago, driving his motorcycle, no fault of his, lady cuts him off. Don't want to say lady, could have been a guy. It was a lady. Not her fault, but who pulled out, and he lost a leg below the knee. He was here this weekend. You saw him, I'm sure.
I saw him.
Yeah. So he came up to the top of the mountain on his crutches within hours, literally within hours of his leg being cut off. He's posting selfies online laughing about it, saying, hey, you know what, it is what it is.
Lost a leg, time for a selfie.
Time for a selfie. Wasn't that great? Yeah,
Unbelievable.
Exactly. And then the next thing he did, very same stint in the hospital, he signed up for a marathon in April. He's got 100 friends, most of them who have never run a marathon before and have always said they wouldn't, going to go do it because if Webb's going to do it, they have to do it, right?
Yeah.
So there's a guy who, and he said this, he said, would I have been able to do this if I hadn't done the death races? Not at all. No way, because I would have not known what it feels like to be in that kind of situation.
Sure.
And immediately, it was instant, he was able to kick into that. Now he's going to go out and speak. So again, we talk about once you have a new platform, what are you going to do with it? Right. He's now going to go out and motivate other people.
He's decided to use that ability to help other people. I watched him transform, and then he's transforming me. So
I remember a moment. It was 2013 summer death race when he had quit, and he'd quit several death races at that point. And you were riding him about it, saying, "Dude, when are you going to finish one of these things?"
Yeah.
But you know what's funny? Sometimes, and you know this, where some of the best people they don't finish, but they keep coming back, right?
Yeah.
And then when they do finish, it means even more.
Yeah.
And that was a really cool thing when he finished 2014,
Yeah.
and it was huge for him,
Yeah.
and just in time.
I know.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that was good.
Johnny, I loved what you said about so what. I think that's a great easy go-to.
So what
right?
is good. Did you ever use that in the
military? And Colonel and I said they'd use it in the
It's
military.
common in military, it is.
Yeah.
During briefings, you'll often get a senior guy will stop the guy briefing and say, well, so what? Meaning, I know what you've just told me, but what is its impact on me? What does it mean to me? What do you want me to do with that knowledge now?
But not to get away from Johnny, but when you did a briefing, weren't those briefings specifically for, hey, we're going to do this, and let me tell you what...
Well, there can be briefing on anything, Joe. If somebody's traveling, if you're building something, if you're,
Got it. So many of those briefings, you're literally saying, so what? Like, I don't understand how this
What
applies.
is the so what of this brief? I mean, what is it that I'm supposed to get out of this thing?
What's the so what of
which,
the
which when you look at when people are just talking and they're just telling you something, and quite often it's complaining, it's emoting, it's doing whatever, right? But it's a bit of a pattern interrupt. Pattern interrupt is a term in psychology that says we're going to break you out of what you're doing so you see it differently. And so when I say so what, it stops people because it sounds like I'm being disrespectful. That's intentional, because when I say that and they sort of step back a little bit, they're going to see things a little bit differently, approach it differently.
It's like a paradigm shift.
It's a paradigm shift. So what I want to do is I want to get them away from just this blathering on about something and say, great, so in the face of that, what are you going to do now? And because really, and we've talked to so many people and we've looked at adversity. Marion, our phenomenal camera person, asked me a great
Really
question off camera a while
Today's
ago.
camera person.
Yeah, sorry, that's right, exactly. the temp. And but she said that we keep talking about people who deal with adversity, right? And that's an easy one to look at, because we say, well, so what? In the face of that adversity, what do they do? She said, is there ever a situation where something really good happens and their success is because of that? And I think that's a great question, because it's still so what? If something great happens and you don't then capitalize on it and make something even better out of it, or find a way to benefit other people with it, great stuff happens to us all the time. We just don't notice it because we take it for granted.
Well, I would argue, and I do argue, what happens with great stuff, it's success in some form, whether you won the lottery, right? Whether you got in a great relationship, whether Sephra found an acorn out in the woods.
Acorn pancakes are delicious, Joe.
That's great stuff. And then what you do with that is you try to repeat it, because you know how good that felt, right? Yeah. If you know what to do with your success or your failures. Right. But it's more likely, I think, tell me what you guys think, to repeat success once you've tasted it.
Well, I think that's brain patterning, isn't it? It's like brain elasticity. It's like you keep on firing those neurons, like something worked, and the more you do it over and over again, then it becomes like, what do they call it? Like muscle reflex, right?
Muscle
that's why
memory.
you do.
Muscle memory.
That's why you do all the training, isn't it? Muscle memory.
Yeah, and
Brain
I've heard you use the phrase before. Tell me, future memory,
Future memory.
which I find to be quite fascinating. And if I get it right, is that when you succeed, you have that moment of euphoria.
Yeah.
So you have all those great thoughts, and so when you start to undertake the next project, you get a little moment there where you remember what that success was like, and that euphoria is part of the driving factor to go to the next one.
Yeah.
But everybody, success breeds success, and failure clearly is learned a lot of times as well, and leads to more failure.
well,
And we
that's
go
what
through
I-
life. We so often go through life trying to
not
avoid.
always, but-
we try and avoid failure, and that's a really dangerous trap, because we're focusing on this thing that we don't want to happen. And by trying to avoid failure, what you're really patterning is failure. And so we've talked to athletes who've talked about the
Olympian, like what you said.
absolutely
You have to
that
lose.
mental imaging and seeing this. Sorry, go ahead.
No.
Why don't you become the doctor on the show, and Johnny will take over
No,
horticulture?
this is what Dr. Johnny said when we were talking
No,
to.
but seriously, the last few shows you've been trying to hoard the mic.
Joe,
great.
I defer to you. Mute. Go on mute,
I'm
Johnny.
busting your chops.
Well, no, all that I was going to say there is that we have talked to a few athletes who've talked about that patterning and that mental imaging. And if we can picture that positive outcome, and that's future memory, the idea about something that hasn't happened yet, but you see it and see it and see it and see it, you're far more likely to bring it around. And I'm not talking in some metaphysical, airy-fairy way. I just mean, quite simply, if you're an athlete who's pictured landing that jump 1,000 times, when it comes time to do that jump, you're not going to hesitate. Your body's going to react And
Well, when you're in the flow state, right, then your mind just takes over. And
sure. And again, with in the military, you have to picture ultimately this is going to be a positive outcome, or you can't go into it. I mean, you look at all the variables, but you're not going to send guys in unless you've envisioned that there's a way they can succeed, right?
Well, the plan isn't viable if you've got to have a successful outcome on the plan,
Or it's not gonna happen.
Right. Well, or you make another plan.
Sure, exactly.
I mean, that's it. You wouldn't intentionally write a plan. That would
If
fail.
I may,
That's right. And yet in
interrupt.
life, so often we just go through. we don't have that end goal in mind. We just know what we don't want to happen.
Yeah, you're kind of stumbling, bumbling, rumbling through, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
I'd be shocked. I'm just sitting here thinking, I'd be shocked if this podcast isn't super successful. I want to put
Did
out
it?
some positive thoughts.
You got to picture it.
But also, I mean, Dr. Phil's pretty successful, and I think we've got Dr. Johnny,
There you go. I'll take it.
right? And
I've been cut from the podcast.
You're not allowed to talk.
Yeah.
Mum's the word for you.
Since we already have a Dr. Phil, I'll let him do that.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was good. We don't need to talk too much about Johnny.
But let
Wrap
me
this
ask
up.
John. But let me ask Johnny another question here, if I could, just
You get one more.
because we haven't really talked about the concept of confidence.
Sure, yeah.
And again, this is something you see in pro athletes or even college athletes, is that once they start believing in themselves, there's
100%.
baseball teams that make it to the World Series that the year before maybe the Boston Red Sox from worst to first,
Yeah.
essentially with the same team, but they believe once you start believing in yourself and you have the confidence. I think you believe in yourself, but others start to believe as well, right?
Yeah.
And your opponent starts to.
I thought it had something to do with
believe less.
Babe Ruth.
But that's true leadership.
Oh, the Red Sox. Good one.
But that's true leadership, right?
Well, it's all about planting seeds, right?
So leadership, you want to get yourself confident, but it's also how can you then imbue that into other people? And so clearly leading by example. But when you talk about a team environment, I have a phrase that all hypnosis is self-hypnosis, but when you can train people to just constantly reinforce in their mind, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. That's hypnosis. It really is. But it's also confidence. And confidence comes out of imagining a positive outcome. Because if you constantly know that you're going to be successful, you become confident, you act differently, people respond differently to
they
you.
do respond differently.
100%, yeah. And when people carry themselves with that, they're going to get the results.
I don't know how many records have been broken once the record is broken,
Sure, yeah.
right?
Yeah, because now they know it can be
It
done.
can be done.
Yeah.
And I've just had this fight 20 minutes ago on the phone regarding the gentleman I told you about, where it's like, I know this will work, just do it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people just don't believe that it can be done. It's not possible. We can't break a 4-minute mile. We can't run a 2-hour marathon. Well, how do you know?
Sure, exactly. And you know what? That's why we keep pushing the envelope, and that's where your success comes from, and why you're able to lead and drive other people, because you just know what can happen. It's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
Yeah.
Could happen. All right. With that, let's check out SpartanUpPodcast.com. Let's learn more about Dr. Johnny. Learn more about Sephra, who's not speaking any longer on any of the podcasts. She's just going to look good
Well.
in the corner. And what?
No, I felt bad. I got her name wrong, and it went downhill from there.
People always get my name wrong. I love it. People call me.
I feel this is my fault. So
Don't feel bad. Joe was just saying her job is to look good, and he was about to say yours is the opposite. So
And then we've got Colonel Nye, who's got the interactive corner on the site, and you can learn more about other podcasts. You can complain about this podcast. You can do anything you'd like, but hopefully you watch it. See ya.
see you there.